Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. This is part 3 for this news report or bulletin today. It's Tuesday, February 26, 2013. Alright, I'm going to keep moving fast, or move faster, because I still have a lot to get to. Eurozone economy to shrink again in 2013, says the European Union. So, the Eurozone will not return to growth until 2014, says the European Commission, reversing its prediction for an end to the recession this year and blaming a lack of bank lending. It's not enough usury and record joblessness for delaying the recovery, which again, they're not. I don't think there's really much they can do with joblessness. Not the way the economy's moving, like I said, with machines and robots, and there's too many people and not enough jobs, which is why they carry out eugenics program and population reduction programs. And if we were truly free, then there probably wouldn't be a problem, but we're not. So I don't see it happening anytime soon. Sorry to sound like a pessimist, but I'm optimistic about a long-term future. So, Britain's credit rating downgraded from AAA to, what is this, AA +1? So the government's economic strategy has been dealt a serious blow after a leading credit rating agency downgraded UK debt on its expectation that growth will remain sluggish over the next few years. Going down, it says Moody's announced on Friday night that it has cut the government's bond rating one notch to the highest possible level, to this A1. So it's a significant setback. Power of the pound, I guess for the US it would be like the dollar, in your pocket down by 67%. The purchasing power of the UK's currency has plunged by 2/3 over the last 30 years as the cost of everyday goods has soared, research released today. A threefold increase in retail prices means the average shopper would need to have £300 in their wallet today to have the equivalent spending power of £100 back in 1982. Total costs in comparison, the prices are based on the essential household items, including a loaf of bread has tripled in the last 3 decades from 37 pence to £1.24. So a dozen eggs, which would have cost 73 pence, are now £2.82, and the price of milk has more than doubled from 20 pence to 46. Wow, look at this! A pint of drought bitter went up from 73 pence, to £3. Families struggle to feed kids in the UK. A new survey has found that a majority of British families are struggling to feed their children, with kids sent to school with cold chips or a packet of biscuits. According to the survey, more than 2/3 of adults working with children, 68.1%, said in the last 2 years they've seen a change in the food and children's lunchboxes as household budgets get tighter. So it says some children just come in with just packets of biscuits or poor quality sandwich fillings, sometimes just margarine. It says there were fewer processed items, more leftovers or store-covered items in the lunchboxes. In some ways it is healthier, but some families only give cold cooked rice or cold chips with fish fingers. It says the message here is that too many people who work with children are having to go above and beyond the call of duty to try to protect their children from the efforts of hunger and poor diet. Next up, U.S. middle class hollowing out, says economist. The American middle class is declining as the U.S. economy fails. Is it really failing? I don't think it's failing. It's a transition. It's changing, just as the elites planned, to keep up with the demands of a globalized world, which has been completely manufactured and forced down our throats. America used to be a uniquely productive, low-cost place to do business, says a Harvard economist, adding that the country's domestic problems and diminishing global presence are hollowing out the middle class. We had efficient infrastructure, we had limited regulation, and then it goes on and says we believed in the market, maybe the free market? I don't know. But it says here, he said domestic problems are due to the burdensome legal system, eroding infrastructure, and decline in labor skills. Finishing up, says for the first time in 50 years, income averages have declined because many Americans do not have the skills needed to earn a decent living. Being an American doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a high wage, says Porter, adding that you have to be productive and we have to create a very low-cost, efficient place to do business, and we let all that slip in America. A report released by the Pew Research Center described the mid-tier class as suffering its worst decade in modern history, having dropped in income for the first time since the end of World War II. A third of Britons failed to save. The tough economy means that many people are living on a financial precipice. Almost 1/3 of the UK population, equating to 15 million people, is not managing to put away anything in savings. So, struggling with high living costs means that many people are living on financial precipice with little or nothing to fall back on. So this is everywhere. This is in the U.S. too. I remember covering an article about this. The feds want your retirement accounts from the 22nd of February, and this is from the AmericanThinker.com. Quietly behind the scenes, the groundwork is being laid for the federal government confiscation of tax-deferred retirement accounts, such as IRAs. It says January 18th, little notice interview of Richard Cordray, acting head of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Bloomberg reported that the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is weighing whether it should take on a role in helping Americans manage the $19 trillion they have put into retirement savings, a move that would be the agency's first foray into consumer investments. That thought generates some skepticism, as aptly expressed by Richard Terrell cartoon published by American Thinker. So, average Americans are feeling the pain of U.S. debt. So it goes on here. It says years of low tax rates and rising federal spending, amplified by the economic effect of the great wealth consolidation operation, have driven the U.S. borrowing tab to more than $16 trillion from less than $1 trillion in 1981. Deficit reduction has become the dominant issue in Washington, even though, like I said, Obama spent more than most all the presidents combined in the last 4 years. The first major tax increase since 1990. See, the only reason they're saying this is so they can borrow more money. That's what the usury system and all that is all about. So they just want to be able to borrow more. And they can't do that if they don't have any credit. So they want to straighten up the credit by screwing a lot of people over. So but they keep hearing about this sequestering and the military is going to be weak, and we'll see, right? We'll see if the contracts aren't flowing to the military-industrial complex and to the banks and to the pharmaceutical companies. The first major tax increase since 1993 took place last month, and large automatic spending cuts, $1.2 trillion over the next decade, are set to kick in on Friday. Says basically the result is average Americans are starting to feel the pain. Says the day of reckoning is here. A former U.S. Comptroller General says we're at the end of an era where we have Democratic spending policies and Republican tax policies. So it's resulted in huge deficits and mounting debt burdens that don't work. Go in there and check it out. The banks show no mercy as 10 foreclosure horror stories that will blow your mind. So, and of course we know that they've got a lot of money, right, from taxpayers and bailouts and stuff like that. But it goes on here, it says if you get behind your mortgage, your family might be tossed into the street at gunpoint in the middle of the night. Talking about a family where they lived for 18 years was thrown out at gunpoint in the dead of night. It says they were not set upon by robbers, but by the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department. I guess that's what, in Georgia. As Stephen Rosenfield reported for Alternet, it was the fourth company to buy the family's mortgage in 8 months. So it goes on there, says it was bad enough the 62-year-old disabled veteran was evicted from their house, foreclosed, where the former owner had been letting him live. It says then it started to rain. As all of his worldly possessions sat in the heat by the side of the road, he noticed some valuables were missing. It was just ugly. I was broken hearted. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I ended up standing, watching all my life's work go down the tubes. Good article. It's kind of long, so you got to go in there and check it out. One of them, we've covered this before, is when the big banks kick someone out of their home and they never actually take possession of the house, and then of course these bills end up to the person who's been foreclosed and kicked out of their house to pay all these county taxes and stuff. Other homeowners have found themselves trapped in a loan modification hell that was supposed to help people after the wealth consolidation operation known as the Great Recession in 2008 and the housing bubble. Sometimes financial institutions will promise you a loan modification for many months and then turn around and foreclose on you anyway, such as Wells Fargo. So, and one of the biggest, we're talking about savings. One of the biggest savings is what? Is people's houses, their mortgages, right? So, and it was devastated. All right, next up, even if your state banned sleazy payday loan sharking scumbags, get around that with friends like JPMorgan Chase. Someone was just talking to me about this, about they're popping up everywhere. Major banks have quickly become behind-the-scenes allies of internet-based payday lenders that offer short-term loans with interest rates sometimes exceeding 500%. With 15 states banning these payday loans, a growing number of the lenders have set up online operations in more hospitable states and locations like Belize, Malta, and West Indies to more easily evade statewide caps on interest rates. In some cases, the banks allow lenders to tap checking accounts even after the customers have begged them to stop the withdrawals. So it says screwing the working poor is just as important to these thugs as screwing the middle class. So remember, JPMorgan Chase. JPMorgan Chase plans to cut 19,000 jobs by 2014. And they're going to start with slashing 4,000 jobs in 2013. Virtually all of the big banks' profits come from taxpayer bailouts and subsidies. So it says the big banks would just about break even in the absence of corporate welfare. They've propped up the big banks for years through massive, never-ending bailouts and subsidies, as Bloomberg noted last year. That 77% jump in JP Morgan's net income comes from government subsidies. The largest banks aren't really profitable at all. It says, what if the billions of dollars they allegedly earned for their shareholders were most entirely a gift from the U.S. taxpayers? I go in there and check it out. Going to keep moving. Why should taxpayers give big banks $83 billion a year? On a television interview with the biggest U.S. banks, JPMorgan Chase executive CEO or whatever, Jamie Dimon, makes the case that its size, it's too big to fail, right, is a competitive advantage. So it says it helps them lower costs and vie for customers on an international scale. Limiting it, regulating or whatever, they would warn, would impair profitability and weaken the country's position in global finance. It makes them sound like they're actually like an American company, right? Well, that's why a lot of these companies go outside the country in tax havens, so they can avoid that. I mean, they're not American at all. They're global companies. They have no, each country is a company, and each company is like their own sovereign country. We have £5 billion scheme finds jobs for just 20 people. Just 20 former benefit claimants placed on the government's back-to-work scheme have found jobs. During the first 14 months of the work program to last July, only 3.6% of claimants on the scheme moved off benefits into sustained employment, less than a third of the 11% that was expected to achieve. Bankrupt San Bernardino hires twice bankrupt manager for annual salary of $222,000. The bankrupt city of San Bernardino hires this guy based on his, quote, experience. The new city manager has twice declared personal bankruptcy and was recently ousted from the board of a small community's water company after being sued by its shareholders. That's just typical, right? Business as usual. So he's going to try to actually help them file for bankruptcy and somehow, scam their way through it as much as they possibly can. That's why they probably have him there. U.S.-EU trade deal, or they just can't afford anybody better. U.S.-EU, quote, better, right? Better at scheming, or better, that's more moral, right? And more ethical in their business practices. U.S. and EU trade deal is the foundation for a new global economic order. They've launched negotiations, which is to be the world's largest, they say, free trade deal. Such an agreement would be the basis for the creation of an economic NATO and would include trades in goods, services, and investment, as well as cover intellectual property rights. There are copyright in that. There are concerns that the U.S. could use these talks to push the EU to loosen its restrictions on genetically modified crops and food. In addition, the deal might serve as a backdoor means to implement ACTA, which was rejected by the European Parliament last year. The U.S.-EU transatlantic trade agreement is seen as a way of countering China's growing power and is the foundation for a new global economic order. Actually, President Obama officially announced their intentions at the State of the Union this January. The EU-U.S. trade deal creating a new world order. This is from Euroactiv.com. So the world order has changed in the course of the financial crisis, they always like to call that, and with it enhanced the consolidation of a new arena of world politics in which superpowers somewhat urgently seem to hunt for new allies to rescue their well-being. So globalization is out and regionalism is in, right? So it's all about the regions, just like it's all been talked about in sci-fi, right? It's all science fiction, the regions. It says, yet it is the financial crisis or the wealth consolidation operation that has caused the main changes to the world arena that used to be perceived as an international order run by a few somewhat fading superpowers. Of course, we know, these rescuing, coming into new, they have to create new allies to rescue them. Well, this is all based off the usury system. This is all based off this wealth consolidation, these frauds, this consolidation of wealth from people that have worked all their lives. Like everything else, these people got rich. They're still there, the few. They're still rich. They're still there. They got richer, and now they got more power. all in the name of crises that they engineered. Black waters in Greece, there's a fear of a coup as mercenaries have been drafted for guarding the government. Thank you.